Halito Chimachukma, this is Chief Steve coming at y'all with another episode of True Story. Now, before we get into it, and which is going to be a good one too, make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and make sure you guys hit that notification bell as well. So whenever I drop these bombs, you'll be the first ones to grab them. Alright, without further ado, let's get into it. Halito family. Today we're diving into an important and deeply personal topic for one of our viewers, who recently discovered that their father descends from the Mohican tribal lineage. Now normally I would shout you out by name and give you your proper honor, but it's been a while since you've reached out and I've kind of lost track of where you initially requested my assistance. But nonetheless, first I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to you for reaching out and trusting me to explore this story, your story, and congratulations on uncovering such a profound connection to your heritage. It's truly an honor to be a part of your journey of self-discovery. Understanding where we come from is a powerful act of reclaiming identity, especially in a world that has so often erased and distorted the truths of indigenous people through colonization, removal, and the rewriting of our story. Now, I know it took me some time to get to this topic, but that's not due to a lack of interest. The story of the Mohican people, or the Muhheakunnuk, or the Mohicannuck, meaning the people of the waters that are never still, has been shrouded in mystery and representation. Much of their story has been watered down, both literally and metaphorically, by time, politics, and even Hollywood's fictional portrayal, like in the movie The Last of the Mohicans. I got a picture of who was depicted as a Mohican Indian in that movie. Let's pause for the cause and check out what that person looked like. Yeah, so this is Eric Swag. Swag. Yeah, it's an actor. This is supposedly what they believe the Mohican people look like, but we all know this is not true. But things like that movie perpetuate the idea that the tribe has disappeared. So if you haven't seen the movie, it's basically based around the Mohican tribe and how they disappeared, how they're being extinct, right? But through my research, I've come to understand that the whole disappearance, that narrative is just a narrative, and it's not entirely true. Now, what remains of their story reveals a resilient people who lived along the Hudson River and were deeply connected to their land, their waters, and their culture. The tribe was fragmented and displaced, primarily because of foreign interests in their rich territory in what is now New York. As you can see, New York is an island in itself. Okay. Got some more pictures of New York, the Hudson Valley. The surrounding is called the Hudson Valley. And that's where the river runs all the way up from Albany all the way down into New York City. As you can see, you got the upper Hudson Valley, the mid Hudson Valley, and the lower Hudson Valley. All right. Now, despite the forces that try to erase them, their legacy persists. Hence our Niji coming forward with their story. And some more pictures of the Hudson Valley and the river. So today we're going to take a look at a few key sources. ones that move beyond the fiction of novels and films to put together the true story of the Mohicanuk. And to our Niji, I hope this helps you better understand your father's roots and honors the legacy of the Mohican people. Now, the Mohican people were a part of the larger Algonquin family and spoke a language that connected them to other indigenous nations in the Northeast. Their society, culture, and identity revolved around the waters that are never still, which is the Hudson River. It's what we know it as today in New York. Unfortunately, their displacement began in the early 17th century when Dutch and English settlers encroached upon their land, sparking centuries of forced removal and loss of territory. But let's talk about an often overlooked aspect of this story: the physical appearance of the Mohican people. Historical records from European settlers often described indigenous people in the region, including the Mohicans, as being of dark complexion with rich brown skin tones. Now, this depiction and witness from European settlers, this aligns with oral history from other indigenous groups and other eyewitnesses who came to the Americas, who describe the Indians, the American Indians, and those who are of those different tribes. They describe their ancestors as being of a dark hue, what some might even call copper colored. And we have some early depictions and descriptions right here, straight from the Library of Congress. You guys may be familiar with these images, but I'm just bringing them to you for the forefront because everybody always says, "Oh, you always use AI," or why don't you have any real pictures? These are real, actual pictures that are from the Library of Congress. These come from the book by John Ogilvy under the title "America: Being an Accurate Description of the New World." And this was back in 1671 when this was written. Now, these descriptions and everything that you've just seen challenge the modern depictions of Native peoples, which have been largely shaped by Hollywood and Western art. And like I said, politics, because we know that the native people, part of the Nativist Party, is a political party. And a lot of them control how things are depicted in Hollywood and in Western art. And Hollywood and Western art portrays them with lighter complexions that often erase the diversity and the richness of indigenous identities. It's critical to acknowledge this as it connects the history of the Mohican people to a broader narrative of indigenous people across the Americas who share similar traits and stories of erasure. The Mohican people didn't just disappear. Their descendants survived. Many were forced westward to Wisconsin, where they merged with Stockbridge Indians, forming what is now known as the Stockbridge-Munsee Band of Mohican Indians, as you saw on the insignia of that last picture. Others may have stayed behind, hidden in plain sight, blending with surrounding communities, such as what we as so-called black people do today. But we know, true ones know, who we really are and how derogatory of a term black and African American is. Yes, they blend us in with surrounding communities, yet we are still who we are, the original people, the American Indians. So a lot of them may have stayed behind during the removal, lost their identity, and had to hide in plain sight, blend with their surrounding communities, and preserve their lineage in quieter, less visible ways, such as Arniji, who has reached out to us, who recently found out about his father. But as we continue, I'll be diving into some specific sources that shed light on their story, providing the missing pieces that colonial narratives have long tried to erase. And my hope to Maniji is that this brings you closer to understanding your father's people and their remarkable legacy. So without further ado, let's get into the books. Alrighty, y'all, so we're going to go ahead and get into the archives first. And this book is called A Nation of Statesmen, The Political Culture of the Stockbridge Munsee Mohicans, 1815 through 1972, by James Warren Oberly, 1954. Publication date is 2005. So we're going to go ahead and get into this. We're going to start a couple of pages in at page 5, I believe. See if I can get this fixed in real quick. I'm going to pause for the cause and we're going to get directly into it. Okay, we're going to be going into some brief things about them, about the Mohican, about the Mohicannuk. All right, so we're going to be jumping in this book from passage to passage, but we're just getting a generalization and a setup for what's been going down with them. So it says right here, anthropologists say that the term Mohican characterized the 17th century union of three groups of Indian villages in what is now the Hudson River Valley of New York State. The Mohicans, the Wapangers, and the Housatonics. Both Mohican and Mohican are variants of Muhheakunnuk, which means people of the waters that are never still, a reference to the tidal Hudson River. Similarly, the term Munsee refers to a group of Delaware Indians who lived on the west bank of the Hudson River in the Muhheakunnuk, and I might be saying that wrong, the Muhheakunnuk River Valley of the Catskill Mountains. The Mohican language is an Algonquin dialect and was spoken until the 1930s. The Munsee language is one of three Delaware dialects and is still spoken by Canadian and Oklahoma Munsees. The confederacy of the two native groups might properly be called Mohican Munsee, and that's that seal that I showed you. It is actually a currently active native tribe today. Okay, so the confederacy of the two native groups might properly be called Mohican Munsee, except that no one uses that term. In the first half of the 18th century, the Mohicans fragmented into groups that moved in different directions. Some moved west into the Susquehanna, sounds a lot like Sukihana, the Susquehanna Valley. Some moved to live among Moravian missionaries, and we're going to get into them a little more later. But moved to live among the Moravian missionaries on the east bank of the Hudson River. The main stem of the Mohicans also moved east to the Housatonic Valley of Massachusetts and Connecticut and developed a new home village named Stockbridge. That village name has stuck as a synonym for Mohican. For the first 30 years in Wisconsin, the two groups were referred to as the Stockbridge and Mohican Tribes of Indians, indicating some separation. Since 1856, the United States has dubbed them hyphenated Native Americans, the Confederacy of the Stockbridge Mohican. Okay, so that's just a general idea right now as to who they are today as far as a Native party. All right, and they also gave some gems and some, brief history, brief true story about what really happened and what's been going on with them. So we're gonna dive a little deeper into this book. We're gonna pause for the cause and see if we can pull up some more information. All right, so getting a little deeper in, we're gonna start talking about the removal. It says Stockbridge Mohican politics have taken place on 3 levels. The first is the international level, or government-to-government relations between tribes and the United States, conducting treaty diplomacy with the United States, or after the end of the treaty era, lobbying Congress and the Bureau of Indian Affairs was the most important level of politics practiced by the Stockbridge Mohican. During the first half of the 19th century, this internation diplomacy was closely connected to the federal policy of Indian removal. Between 1785 and 1856, the number of Mohican removals was as great as any American Indian tribe in the United States. So they didn't disappear. They were removed from where they were. The people didn't just up and disappear. They didn't just fade away. They were removed from their lands. The Mohicans left Massachusetts, then they left New York, and they made 2 additional removals within Wisconsin, and not to mention contemplating but not acting on proposed removals to Iowa and Minnesota. One dissident faction left Wisconsin for Kansas. So part of the tribe left Wisconsin and went into Kansas. And this is between the 1700s and the 1800s, from which that band was relocated to Indian Territory, which is now Oklahoma. Each of these removals and relocations caused hardship to the Mohicans. All right. And today it says each injustice energized the Mohican leaders to seek a remedy or correction for the wrongdoing, the wrong done to their people. And it says correcting those injustices has been the central theme of Mohican politics for almost 2 centuries, and the struggle for justice in the form of claims. And this is looks like it gets into a little map here of where they were being removed from. Y'all can see that. But against the United States and the various states gave meaning and purpose to the tribal identity of the Mohican nation. All right, so this is a whole nation of people. This is, they were bigger than what they try to make them out as, especially in that movie and, in other depictions and stuff. And they didn't just fade away. That's the main thing I wanted to let you guys know. We're still here. They're still here. And as you can tell by our Niji, they ain't going nowhere. We've always been here. All right. So map 1 right here says it shows the removals of the stock bridges and Monsies in North America. This is between 1735 and 1869. So this is during, very well before and after the Removal Act. They were still being removed. So they had over 2 centuries of removal until, they're still removed, honestly, till this day, like everybody else, like all of us, and some have maintained their identity and some have not, and some have been completely displaced and replaced. Those who know, but like I said, we're still here. All right, so we're gonna pause for the cause and see if we can find a little more information in this book here. All right, that was pretty much it for that book. If y'all want to check that book out, by all means, it's in the archive. It's free to borrow, and it renews every hour on the hour as long as you are reading it. So that's that. It just gets more into the politics, land allotments, and different things of that nature. We're just going over a general brief history, brief true story about the people, right? So going forward, another source is the Britannica. It speaks about the Mohican people. Now, if this was a fictional tribe, or if this was a tribe of disappearance, why would the Britannica have anything on them, right? If they're extinct. So it says the Mohican people, also known as Mohican, the Muhheakunnuk, the River Indians. Okay, these are the different names that they're known by. It says the Mohican, Algonquin-speaking North American Indian tribe. Okay, not Native American, American Indian tribe of what is now the Upper Hudson River Valley, above the Catskill Mountains in New York State. Okay, United States. Their name for themselves means the people of the waters that are never still. During the colonial period, they were known to the Dutch and the English as the River Indians. So the River Indians was something that the Dutch and the English gave them, but they known themselves as the Mohicanuck, which is the people of the waters that are never still, right? So says they were known by the Dutch and the English as the River Indians, and to the French as the Loups, or the Loups, L-O-W, L-O-U-P-S, Loups, not sure, which means wolves. And it says the Mohican are not to be confused with the Mohegan, who originally resided in what is now Connecticut and are related to the Pequot. Okay? So don't confuse the two. All right. So it says before colonization, the Mohican consisted of at least 5 bands and were further organized by 3 matrilineal clans. So matrilineal, which means that they followed the lineage of their mother's side. All right, matrilineal clans. The latter were governed by hereditary sachems or chiefs. Okay, so you had some that were made due to the mother's line, that followed the mother's lineage, and were, led by them, by the matriarch. And then you had matriarchal clans, and then you had the hereditary sachems or chiefs. Okay, so and they were assisted by elected counselors. And it says tribal members lived in strongholds of 20 to 30 houses, and they're situated on hills and enclosed by stockades, as well as in an enclosed villages situated between cornfields and woodland. So we're gonna pause for the calls, and I'm gonna see if I can kind of give you guys an idea of what that would possibly look like. All right. All right. So taking the description of what the Britannica just gave me, and entering it into the AI generator, this is the general idea of what it would have possibly looked like. And we know that, we were a little more advanced than this. By a little, I mean a lot. But yeah, this is a general idea as to how the houses would have been situated within the villages. And we know about the palisades, the stockades, and different things of that nature. And yeah, along the Hudson, very beautiful nonetheless. All right. And so yeah, there's a lot of removal going on, but this is what those villages would have looked like during the earlier times, before colonization, before they came through and try to, remove successfully, in a lot of cases, unfortunately, or successfully moved them out. So, but this is what it would have looked like in a general sense. We're gonna pause for the cause and get back to the Britannica. Alrighty, y'all. So it says, when first contacted by the Dutch, the Mohican were at war with the Mohawk. And in 1664, they were forced to move from Shodak, near Albany, to what is now Stockbridge, Massachusetts. They gradually sold their territory there. And in 1736, some of them were gathered into a mission at Stockbridge and became known as the Stockbridge Band. So it was a mission. It was missionaries. And we know back then a lot of the missionaries were mercenaries. The missionaries and the mission gathered them. They gathered into a mission at Stockbridge and became known as the Stockbridge Band. Other groups scattered and merged with other tribes. All right, so a lot of them didn't get down with the religion. They pushed away and they went to other tribes that would accept them. The Stockbridge Band later moved to Wisconsin and were joined by the Muncie Band. All right. And the two groups were allotted a joint reservation in Wisconsin in the 19th century. The American novelist James Fenimore Cooper drew a romanticized portrait of the Mohican in his book, The Last of the Mohicans, in which we know is a fictional depiction of the Mohican people. All right, even down to their actors in the movie. But yeah. Says the population estimates indicated between 3,500 Mohican bands, or 3,500 Mohican descendants in the early 21st century. Okay, so we know that there are way more than that. You know what I mean? So, but that's what that is basically the remnant and those who were gathered into the missions and were renamed, given a new name, and allotted a reservation, those that they accepted into the foliage, So that's the Britannica right there. Some good information on that, and we're gonna move forward into some more true story. Hey y'all, if y'all still with me and y'all like what y'all see, make sure y'all hit that like button, hit that thumbs up down below on the video. That really helps me get these videos out into the algorithm so more of our people can see the true story of our people that have not been told. Okay, so make sure y'all hitting that like button, and if you're new to the channel, like I said at the beginning of the video, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell too. All right, don't be one of those creepy people that just lurk on people's channels and not engage. You know what I mean? That ain't cool. We are a opening, welcoming community for our people. This is a troll-free, hate-free zone. All right. We try to keep it positive in all ways, shape, and form. So if this is what you like, this is what you want to hear, this is something that you're into, by all means, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's continue to grow and build together. All right. Also, if you have any, requests or something you want me to check out, don't hesitate to contact me on my social medias, and also have an email, which will be all in the description below. So just go ahead and hit that description, hit more underneath where the description is, and you should see the credentials. And just, hey, hit me up on social media or on the email. Either way, I'll get back to you. Alrighty. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and move forward and get more deeper into the true story. Alrighty, y'all. So now we're getting into the Google Books. This is William A. Starna's From Homeland to New Land, A History of the Mohican Indians, 1600 to 1830. Alright. Excuse me. So that's going to be the title of the book. And if you notice, the format is a little different going into this segment, because if I turn it sideways in the landscape, it's not going to look too hot. So bear with me. And yeah, if you can read along. If not, just listen. But you guys do see the name of the book. You guys can follow along or research and read for yourself at a later time. All right. So I'm going to pause for the cause. We're going to get into some good information here. Alrighty, so we're going to be starting at chapter 5, the ethnographic past. We're going to be checking out a few passages from this chapter. It says the ethnographic past, assessing the documentary and published record. It says the native people living in the Hudson Valley at the time the Dutch arrived either had previous first-hand encounters with Europeans or were well aware of their presence in nearby regions, in particular the St. Lawrence Valley. To what degree these experiences may have affected the form or complexion of Indian societies at this early date is unknown. So they're saying that basically we as American Indians, in particular the Mohican and the people of the Hudson Valley, may have had previous encounters with Europeans, which could have influenced the complexion of their societies. All right, so that just shows you that for the most part, when we're talking about complexion, we're talking about skin tone, talking about the hue of them. All right, so yeah, if it was affected, then they may have appeared a little lighter. Who knows? They don't have a lot of information on it. Okay, and it says, in the absence of a written language, their histories were undoubtedly recalled through epic tales, complex cosmologies, or other narratives, none of which were recorded, save for Hendrik Opperman's late 18th century accounts. And we're going to actually get into that a little later. It says there are no other detailed descriptions volunteered by the Mohican themselves or by neighboring native groups of their way of life at or following contact. What survives instead are the commentaries, reports, and correspondence of European observers, the substance and quality of which vary considerably. Information sufficient to reconstruct in any comprehensive manner an early to mid 17th century ethnographic portrait of the Mohicans is lacking So they don't have any, they can't tell you what they look like right now. So what does that tell you? I mean, for me, that tells me that, they looked like how we know they looked like. And now they're saying that, yeah, the Europeans, they may have had contact with Europeans before. They may not have. We don't know. It may have infected their complexion. That's why they look the way they look now. We don't know. But we know. We know what. All we got to do is put two and two together, y'all. We know what's been happening to our people. And we know what's been going on. They want to play like they don't know. It's the know nothings, right? Okay, so sorry, it's just a little, but let's go over this again. Information sufficient to reconstruct in any comprehensive manner an early to mid 17th century ethnographic portrait of the Mohicans is lacking. Dutch sources from the period, there are a few others that remark upon the Mohican people are notable in their lack of specifics, or, it must be said, their indication that there was anything more than a passing interest in these natives, at least enough to write about. So they're saying that they weren't interesting enough to even write about, supposedly. Much of this is explained by the focus of the Dutch on the trade in fur traders. Their Reizen de Terre in New Netherland. Moreover, assuming a stance much different from the French in Canada or the English in New England, the Dutch never launched an effort to proselytize the Indians. Such activity, as it did elsewhere, would likely have produced correspondence or reports offering details on the Indians deemed useful to those who would minister among them. Prior to the English takeover in 1664, so the English took over in 1664, just 11 ordained ministers had, at varying times over the half century of Dutch dominance, assumed posts in New Netherland, 5 of whom returned to Patria after their contracts had expired. So they were indentured. They were out here on contracts. Being spread as thin as they were, whether serving congregations of their countrymen in New Amsterdam or at Fort Orange, later Beverwijk, the patroonship of Razenleshrik. That is a horrible attempt at that word. Rensenlerschrik. That's all you're gonna get from me, guys. Surely forestalled any substantive interaction of a religious bent with the Indians around them. So religion was their thing. It is also the case that the Dutch, unlike the English and French, did not establish their colony in New Netherland following the usual imperialistic European design. On the contrary, it was the laxity of Dutch imperialism that drove the venture. That is, the Dutch Maritime Empire never developed a territorial commitment usually associated with the empires of Holland's chief rivals for imperial splendor, rather than operating, as did other European powers, under the weight of government restrictions. It was the financial potency of private merchants that funded successes in New Netherland and in other Dutch colonies. Moreover, New Netherland's path from trading post to settlement colony rendered it uniquely alongside its Dutch contemporaries. Equally important, the existence of the colony was not widely perceived as something to fear by native people, living outside of its borders who apparently saw for themselves economic, social, political, and even military advantage to be had. This is not to say that there was no resistance from within, as the bloody and tragic wars waged between the Mansis and the ultimately victorious Dutch in the 1640s and again in the late 1650s into the 1660s attest. There is little to suggest that Dutch interests in the natives extended much beyond their perceived utility as traders in furs or persons from whom land could be purchased, that is, as economic assets or as potential threats to the colony's survival. Little else or of their way, little else of their way of life seems to have mattered to the Dutch. So, according to them, it says that the Dutch didn't really care too much to write about them, but they had the most contact with them supposedly in the early 17th century, and even went to war with them in some cases. But they weren't interested enough to write about who they were, what they looked like. You don't want to know about, especially if you were so victorious, you wouldn't want to have any kind of written account of what the people what the people look like that you conquered or that you destroyed supposedly. So you really can't take this. We can't take this seriously. What we can know is that they may have possibly looked a lot like us. It's a high chance because a lot of the Eastern Indians, Northeastern and Southeastern Indians, are dark-skinned, copper-colored people, and they were not as successful as they said they were as far as conquering. We know that they like to fabricate. So, anyway, let's get into it a little deeper here. Let's see here. So it says the depiction of a presumed and regrettably routinely accepted ethnographic past of the Mohicans resident in the Hudson Valley in the 17th century exists in the form of a small number of relatively recently published works, none of which are entirely reliable. The first of these, published by Ted J. Brazier in 1974, and we have that book, we're going to get into that next, fails to systematically reference or identify the sources from which he supposedly drew his information, which renders much of what he reports about the Mohicans Mohicans unverifiable. So the reports that he's made about the Mohicans are supposedly unverifiable because he doesn't have any sources. And many of the works Brazier does list are dated. So the works that he does do, they are dated. He has what it says, anecdotal or barely ancillary local and academic histories that do little more than repeat each other. So he's trying to discredit them, offering no new information beyond what was known from the scattered Dutch accounts. The second set of works by Shirley W. Dunn either uncritically restates many of Brazier's unfounded assertions or creates others through the injudicious application of comparisons to adjacent native groups. In the end, what Brazier and Dunn produced contain a good number of largely unsupported, if not invented, constructions of Mohican culture, replete with astonishingly well-rounded descriptions of their settlements, seasonal activities, economy, ceremonies, social organization, ideology, and kinship, and the like. Okay, so we're going to pause right here, and I'm going to show you some work by both of these two authors. So we're gonna, because they want to say that it's not unverifiable, or it's unverifiable, and they may have made it up, but it's so little information on the Mohican people, and some of it is even being hidden. I'm about to show you that right now. I'm gonna pause for the cause, and we're gonna try to find these books here. Alright, y'all, so we found Ted J. Brazer's Writing on the Frontier's Quest. This is from the National Museum of Man, Mercury series, Ethnology Division, paper number 13. Writing on the Frontier's Quest, Mohican Indian Culture and Culture Change. Alright, by Ted J. Brazer. So, if this was such a falsified and unverifiable piece of information, why would it be listed in a museum and published in a museum? It says right here, this is in the National Museums of Canada, Ottawa, 1974. Says this is a preview. Total pages displayed will be limited. Pages displayed by permission of University of Ottawa Press. Okay, so if this is, come on now. So I said it's best to do the research yourself. Okay, so you guys got the book, and y'all can see it. This right here goes into the tribal names, linguistic affiliation, the Mohican culture, fur trade period, turn to the River Indian Confederacy, the mission community, and then the reservation period. See, there's a difference. It even gives it here, the Mohican and their neighbors, circa AD 1600. This is a depiction from the 1600s. Right here. They had the Algonquin up top, the Huron, the Oneida, the Mohawk, and the Mohican, all throughout this area right here. See all that? So I'll just read the introduction for you guys for now. But I want you guys, if you're interested, and I need you, if you're watching this, I'm giving you the information. I want you to do your due diligence and keep on moving forward, okay? But here's the introduction. It says, according to the traditions of the Mohican tribe and the testimonies of its prominent leaders, the tribe's name was derived from Muhheakunnuk, which was the name of a locality. It referred to the tidal water of the Hudson River, which indeed is subject to ebb and flow as far upriver as present Albany, New York. And we showed you in that map earlier. Similar words in the related Munsee language corroborate these native testimonies. This name was recorded with slightly differing spellings as early as 1763 and as late as 1914. From this name were derived the terms Mohicanunnuk and Muhheakunnuk, referring to respectively, a Mohican Indian and the Mohican Indians. All right. Although there is no reason to doubt the great age of these terms, Adrian Block, 1614, and later colonial authorities usually referred to the tribe as Mohicans, Mohicanders, and similar names. It is possible that these names resulted from the early Dutch use of Delaware or Mansi Indian interpreters from coastal New Netherland, who pronounced the tribe name as Mohican, or Mohicanuck, or Mohican, or Muhheakunnuk. Okay? Following the practice of the Algonquin Indians, the early French sources refer to the Mohican as wolves, either in French, loups or loups, or in Algonquin, Mangan, or Mahingan, etc. By 1662, the name loups or loops began to lose its specificity and was used to refer to several tribes in New England and New York State. So, I mean, just like how everybody is black, right? How everybody is African American. And we all have our different tribes. We all come from different tribes and we have different vibes. But they list us all as one generic thing. That's what they do. That's just what they do. Okay? I don't see anything false about this so far. Have you? A close resemblance of the colonial New York. I'm sorry. Let's go back a little bit. I'm getting passionate. So it was referred to several tribes in New England and New York State. It says the close resemblance of the colonial New York names and the Algonquin appellation appears to be at the root of the common misconception that the Hudson River Mohican referred to themselves as wolves. They did not refer to themselves as wolves. This was a derogatory term that were given to them. So the Mohican tribe is not to be confused with the Mohegan of coastal Connecticut. Again, so it's different. Sounds similar, but they're completely different. I even had to do some little further research myself and make sure that was true, and it is. And it says the Mohican tribe is not to be confused. Okay, so these tribes were not related to each other as was formerly thought, although their tribal names have been subject to the same mistake in translation. And according to Hodge, the Mohican were also referred to as Urajis, or Tumawan. The first of these two names, however, was an Iroquois name for the Pennacock Indians of New England. The second appellation, Tumawan, is to be found in the Wallam Olam, the so-called traditional history of the Delaware Indians. Okay? Linguistic research has confirmed earlier opinions to the effect that this history is a falsification connected by Ramphines Ives Goddard. Okay? Person correspondent. So those names were falsely given to them. It was not theirs. Okay? And then it goes into the linguistic affiliation, the culture, 1600, and yeah. So this is a lot of good information on them here. All right, and again, this book is called Riding on the Frontier's Quest: Mohican Indian Culture and Culture Change. All right, and it dates all the way back to the 1600s, first contact, all the way to the reservation period. All right, so very good information. That's Ted J. Razor, and we're going to get into the other person's work and see what they had to say, if we can find it. So let's pause for the cause and see if we can find that. All right, so we tried to look up the lady Shirley Wells Dunn, her book, The Mohican World, 1680 to 1750. This book is currently unavailable. It is not available. Okay? And so this is by the Purple Mountain Press. It's in English, but it is not available, at least for free. Now, when I say get the book, it does have a list of different places that you can get it. So, like Amazon, for instance, BarnesandNobles.com. So, for my Niji out there, if you are really interested and you want to spend the money, I mean, it's research. That's the price of research. Research costs, in a lot of ways. And I'm limited on funds myself, so I do the best I can here. But hey, if those that are here, if you guys are willing to donate, I can set up something. Leave that in the comments below if you're interested in donating, and so I can start getting some hard covers, or at least purchasing the ebook or a digital copy or something that I can keep on file, that I can get deeper into these these truths, because our information is out there. It is out there, but they put it behind paywalls and they put it behind glass and museums and stuff to discourage us from trying to seek it out. All right, but this is a new age. This is an information age, and we are willing to go as far as we need to get our story back. All right, so if you're willing to donate, please let me know in the comments, and I'll set up something and announce it and see what we can do from there. Okay, so this last book that I wanted to show you is To Live Upon Hope: The Mohicans and Missionaries in the 18th Century Northeast. And it's a very interesting illustration here. See how they try to put in the pale images, but there's no denying. Look at that. There's no denying who we truly are. Okay. All right. So without further ado, I'm gonna pause for the cause one more time, and we're gonna go ahead and get into this book. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and get into the introduction. Indian and Christian. All right. It says in April 1803, the Stockbridge Mohican chief Sachem Hendrik Opperman. So this is the name that we heard in the last book that they were going to get to. He delivered a speech. He was a chief. He delivered a speech to a community of refugee Delaware Indians that had recently settled along the White River in Indiana Territory. Opperman recounted for the gathered Delawares how the Mohicans had been introduced to Christianity nearly 70 years earlier. In 1734, the Mohicakunnuk, as they called themselves, received word that Massachusetts officials were eager to send a minister of the gospel. 200 tribesmen gathered to debate whether to accept the offer. Although some voiced objections, the result of the council, reported Opperman, was this: not to reject the offer before they should try it. It was thus decided that there should be a test village where the gospel would be preached. Quote, and let every man and woman go to hear it and embrace it if they think best. Mohicans from various villages began to gather to listen to the minister, but came under the influence. Mohicans various villages. Mohicans from various villages began to gather to listen to the minister, but others were suspicious of Christianity, and these, according to Optima, came under the influence of some wicked Dutch people. So the Dutch weren't Christians, apparently. Not a lot of them. It says, and ardent spirits. So Abamet was a Christian. It says, those who did not join the mission community eventually drifted away, some to live among other nations, and the rest to be buried under the earth. Consequently, their villages are, as it were, desolated and possessed by the whites. So, the Test village, a Housatonic Mohican village, later incorporated as the town of Stockbridge. So, the Stockbridge is a Housatonic village that was incorporated after they accepted Christianity. Then it became Stockbridge, Massachusetts. It was the only village to survive. It was the only village to survive. And the descendants of that, who embraced the civilization and Christian religion, are now still remaining as a nation. So if you accepted Christianity, you're able to remain as a nation, according to Abamet, according to this chief. Ooh, yeah. Abamet believed the Mohican experiment. He allowed his own people to be test subjects for these foreigners. Let's keep going. Abamet believed the Mohican experiment with Christianity and English civilization was the key to their survival as a people. So he recommended the same course to the Delaware. If they followed the Mohican example, the Delaware would become a wise people, happy indeed in this life and the life to come, and they would be able to hold your lands to the latest generation. Okay, so they promised them that they'll be able to keep their land and they'll be happy in this life and the next if they gave their devotion to Christianity. For this is the will of the great and good spirit. But if the Muhheakunnuk offered to introduce Christianity and civilization were rejected, if the Delaware chose instead to embrace the cup of the evil-minded, then Abamet predicted that you will become poor in every respect, and you will be scattered. Your villages will be desolated or possessed by a people who will cultivate your lands. And finally, warned Abamet, you will become extinct from the earth. So, that's where the whole extinction narrative comes from. It comes from the rejecting of Christianity. And we even seen this within the Tocobaga tribe. Shout out to Mazanavayu for, helping me learn more about them. So, yeah. Wow, right? Man, oh man. Well, let's go ahead and go a little further. Abamet's address raised a number of difficult questions. Had Christianity and civilization really served the Stockbridge Mohicans or other Indian peoples so well? Excuse me. Professing Christianity had rarely served to secure Indian lands. By the 1780s, nearly all of the Stockbridge Indians, all of the Stockbridge Mohicans' original lands had been deeded into white hands, and the community had relocated to Oneida lands in New York, in a pattern familiar to the many Eastern Indians pushed westward ahead of white settlement, or pushed to the margins of white society. On the issue of Mohican survival, however, Opperman's argument was hard to dispute. The Stockbridges were the only Mohicans to survive as an independent community. They were not, however, the only Mohican community to embrace Christianity. Even though they embraced Christianity, they still lost their lands. They still lost what was theirs. They were still removed. They were still displaced. They were still erased. It was a deception. It was a great deception. And they only took in that one village. I have something else very interesting to show you within this book. We're going to pause for the cause, see if I can find it, and then we're going to show you the Stockbridge Indians. All right, last thing here to hit the nail on the head and to drive the point home. It says right here, viewed historically, we're at the top here. Viewed historically, it seems that Opperman was right. The embrace of Christianity, or at least Anglo-Protestant Christianity, helped ensure Mohican community survival. But he was also wrong. Opperman's hopes that following the Christian path and adopting English civilization would secure Indian lands were never fulfilled in his time. The Stockbridge Mohicans won some degree of protection through their embrace of Christianity and civilization. Since 1856, the Stockbridge Munsee Band of Mohicans has lived on secured reservation land in Shawano County, Wisconsin. But Opperman and others had to confront the realization that, in the end, most whites could not look past what? Could not look past skin color. Could not look past skin color and accept Stockbridges as fellow Christians and Americans. But now, today, may explain why they look how they look now. But back then, they would not even accept them. Although they accepted Christianity, Christians did not accept them. They did not accept them as whites did not accept them as Christians or even Americans, as American citizens. And because of skin color, what other people do you know who have been reclassified and given all these multiple names and was forced to accept religion and in some cases, some willingly accepted religion, hoping that it would bring some kind of equality. What happened? Who are the people that have been marginalized? Man, I'll let you answer that for yourself. All right? But it may very well explain why they look the way they look today, in which I showed you earlier. Or just look them up. Look up the Stockbridge Munsee band of Mohicans and see what they look like now. All right, y'all. So this is the Stockbridge Munsee band of Mohican Indians today. Good Christian folk. All right. So with that being said, that is all that I could find on the Mohican people, on the Muhheakunnuk. I will refer to them as their original name, the original people by their original name, and that is the Mohicannuk. I truly cherish their story, and again, it was an honor, despite all the different emotions. It is an honor, truly an honor, to have this brought to my attention. This was a great experience, a great learning path, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed this as much as I have, as far as going in and, digging in and just learning the true story. I mean, the truth ain't always gonna be good. It ain't gonna always be pretty. We have to acknowledge it, embrace it, and shed light. We have to. All right. But yeah, these are what the Mohican supposedly look like today. But again, shout out to our Niji out there, whoever you are. And if you're watching this, Tatakista, I cherish you, brother. I cherish you, sister. Let your presence be known. I'd like to properly acknowledge you. And yeah, I hope I did you and your father and your people some kind of justice. Your story will never be forgotten. Your people never erased, never extinct. All right. So that being said, y'all hung out with me this long. Again, I cherish you all from the bottom of my heart. Make sure you guys like this video, comment, let me know what you guys think below, and yeah, subscribe if you're new. Tatakista, I cherish you all again, and Yokoki, thank you. We'll see you on the next one.